On today's show, just when you thought the good vibes for the Padres were back, they go out and not only lose the last game in a series against the Brewers with possibly some mismanagement by Mr. Mike Schill, but also Ramon Laureano, fractured finger, going to miss at least the wild card round. We got to talk about it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Thursday, September 25th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for nearly 6 years now, not just for this podcast, but various other outlets, including JustBaseball.com, Chief, among them. You can, if you wish, follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno, but I'm taking a little bit of a break from there, so if you really want to reach out and have your questions and takes and comments responded to, answered, not responded to, trolled to, whatever you want, leave comments in the comments section below, and I will get back to them, especially with the regular season winding down. But today's show, we are specifically talking about yesterday's game between the Padres and the Brewers, the last in a series, because it's a day off. I mean, we got to talk about something, right? So we're going to be talking about that, talking about Dylan Cease especially, and Jeremiah Estrada. And then we got to talk about some of the news that happened yesterday. Ramon Laureano expected to miss the first round of the wild card series. So the first series, right? Going to talk about that and talk a little bit about postseason rotation rankings via The Athletic. They did an article on this, and I thought it was interesting. So we will talk about all that just in a second. Let's get to it, guys. Let's get to it. I'm excited. Despite it all, we are still here, ladies and gentlemen. And we are here to first mention that the Padres did lose yesterday's game by a score of 3-1. Unfortunately, they did get shut down a little bit by Chad Patrick. 3 innings, 6 Ks for my guy, and the rest of the bullpen, for the most part, did the work. The only run that the Padres score, though, is a big one. Jackson Merrill, he does not get the day off. Instead, he bats third. Machado was actually back in the lineup as well. No Tatis, who, by the way, totally forgot to mention. My mistake. I messed up. He's actually dealing with an illness right now. So it's not expected to be something to keep him out long term. He hasn't tested positive for anything crazy yet, but it's not just day off for Tatis. It seems like he's got an illness. So hopefully that's not a big deal and doesn't keep him absent for too long either. There hasn't been much of an update on Tatis since this came out. So hopefully it's nothing crazy. I just okay. I'm worried, folks. I'm worried. I'm very worried. But we'll see how it goes. But Manny Machado back in line, Jackson Merrill back in lineup, Merrill with the home run again. I cannot emphasize enough. This guy has been going scorched earth basically through all of September, and he was kind of back in the month of August too. Right? Mentioned it before, but by OPS. He actually did quite good in August with a 799 OPS, and this month 971. He's been one of the best outfielders in baseball this month, and the slug I think is really, really big to see that back. By far his best slugging percentages since April to start this season. Remember when he started off on fire? Remember when they extended him? They gave up they gave him the contract extension, and then he hit a home run that day, right? All that sort of stuff. We're seeing more power. 7 home runs in the month of September. He's getting hot at the perfect time. And again, it really shows what we've been saying all year, which is that Jackson Merrill, I never thought that what he was doing was a sign of, oh no, we made a mistake extending this guy. I thought it was just classic baseball. This is just what happens sometimes. But even still, despite the fact that he's having a sophomore slump, he's clearly breaking out of it and showing you this guy's going to be a good player for a long time. The fact that he's still going to finish with probably 3 wins above replacement or right near there is really, really impressive. And his expected stats are great. He just had to, work on some stuff. He doesn't walk a lot, so he doesn't have as much free bases that will be there for him if he's not fully hitting and taking what's being given to him by opposing pitchers, right? So love to see that from Jackson Merrill. Very, very good. But other than that, not much. Arise gets a hit and a walk, though. Right? 1 for 3 with Arise, but a walk. He's been looking better, guys. He's looking a little bit more like the Luis Arise that I think his fans think he is. And especially the Luis Arise that we saw back in 23 and 22, especially, right? So, there's some good signs for the Padres, like genuinely some good signs. 2 for 4 game from Ryan O'Hearn, also nice to see because he'd been slumping a little bit. Gavin Sheets, 1 for 3 with a walk. And also, it's worth noting that the Padres got a little bit unlucky with some of their bad balls. Gavin Sheets had the overall hardest hit of the day in the fourth inning, and it ended up being a lineout despite hitting it 105.8 miles per hour exit velocity, and it had an expected batting average of 900. That's obscenely lucky. Xander Bogaerts had a flyout with a 700 expected batting average. Jake Cronenworth had a ground out with a 530 expected batting average, right? So the Padres did get a little bit unlucky with some of their hits, so it's worth bringing that up before we, I guess, criticize them a little bit for just not being able to score against the Brewers in this one. Adrian Morejon, he gets hit a little bit in this game, but I like it. You know why? Get it out of your system. I'm a big believer in that. I just like it. But I want to talk about Dylan Cease really quickly. Dylan Cease, once again, with a quality kind of start. 5 innings in this one. He does give up 6 hits, but only 1 earned run, worked out of trouble, 2 walks, and 8 Ks. His slider generated 7 whiffs, 4 whiffs on his fastball. His fastball didn't get hit particularly hard. Hey, it's the best team in baseball. They're still trying to get some wins. I do think it matters that this is the version of Dylan Cease we were begging for. Not necessarily, we kind of gave up on this being a Cy Young season for Dylan Cease, right? We all gave up on that a while ago. But if you actually look at his overall numbers, you're like, oh, this is what we were asking for all year. We were just like, can you be decent? And that's what he's been doing basically since the start of September, right? He had a pretty decent month. 4 innings, 2 runs against the Orioles, 7 Ks, 5 innings, only 1 against Colorado, 6 innings, only 1 against Colorado again. 6 innings at least, gives up 4 against the White Sox, but he did go 6 innings. And then lastly, against the Brewers, 5 innings, only 1 run allowed. So the stuff is there. And again, I'm telling you, I will be 0% surprised if he bounces back next year. The stuff is still there, I think, to a degree. He can still get you the strikeouts. He still throws a lot of innings. He's going to be a big commodity for a lot of teams. Whether or not he can ever reach the peak again of what he was, we'll have to see. But the underlying metrics are there, which is why you're going to see a team probably still shell out for him. I just think it might be one of those deals where it's like, 3 years, $75 million, a player option after each. Although, we'll have to see if he does well in the playoffs, because I think both him and Michael King, if they have great playoff showings, I wouldn't be surprised if teams are like, screw it. We know what they can be. We know what the underlying data is. Even if the results weren't fully there, especially for Cease, we're going to pay them anyway. So we'll have to see how that goes. It's going to be a really interesting offseason. But folks, that is not all. I want to talk about Jeremiah Estrada. And my man Big Jim, if you were watching the postcast, remember everybody, tune in after every game on the Locked On Padres YouTube channel. The postcast goes live with my man Big Jim Grease. He kind of just does a little recap and responds to you guys, kind of live content right after the game for every game. So go check that out. So lots to talk about, guys. But first, I need to mention to you our friends over at the Duelist Fandom. The Duelist Kingdom, but more importantly, the FanDuel folks. That was a horrible intro to that. But the NFL season is definitely here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the kickoff tonight. Cardinals Seahawks, for Sunday, Chargers Giants. Maybe want to get a little bit of Chiefs Ravens action. All sorts of stuff going on this weekend. They're ready with a can't miss offer, though, at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. However you want to bet, player props, same game parlays, full parlays, even jumping in live action, right? If you want to do baseball, Nerfies. I know people like doing the no run first inning. Whatever you want, it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays and beyond. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Hope you all are thriving and vibing on this Thursday afternoon. To continue talking about the game, last thing that's worth talking about, Jeremiah Estrada. Gives up a run in this one, gives up a home run specifically to my man Danny Jansen, formerly of the Blue Jays. You might remember him. Look, the Jeremiah Estrada thing, and as my man Big Jim pointed out, I'm probably on the postcast, he was texting me. He's given up 12 home runs. He's given up 12 home runs, and half of them in the last 3 months. He has been giving up so many big hits at the worst times. Now, part of it was, okay, maybe if you look at his overall ERAs and stuff, if you look at his splits by month, you're like, you know what? This is classic. It's just that it gets super bloated because he was really bad against the Dodgers, right? In the month of August, He had a 4.73 ERA. But in September, when they haven't played the Dodgers, he has a 6.30. He's given up 7 runs in 10 innings, and he's given up 4 home runs over that time period. He's even walked 5 batters, too. Yes, the strikeouts are still there. He's got 17. But overall, we have just seen a guy that has completely fallen apart to the point where I am seriously wondering, is Jeremiah Estrada's talent, which I still think is still there, right? He still gets so many strikeouts, and I love that out of my reliever. But we have reached a point where we're starting to wonder a little bit, like, is he just having a really unlucky stretch, right? Because his expected stats are a little bit better. 2.78 ERA expected, right? And then last year was 2.53. But there might be something to be said for these big games. There might be something to be said for when they're holding a smaller lead or they're only down by a lead, that he keeps coming in and looking really bad. Now, Jim killed him for this. We might talk with him, by the way, on tomorrow's show. Fun Friday, guest revealed. It's possible that, Schilt said, hey, yeah, I was still managing to win the game. Maybe he was like, I don't want to use Miller and Suarez, especially don't want to use Suarez because it's not a save situation, right? A situation he's been a lot worse than this year. And again, I do like that Padres fans are complaining about not using Suarez when everybody was complaining about using Suarez at one point during this year, but even still. And they didn't want to use Miller necessarily. Maybe he just put him out there to get his confidence up, right? Maybe he just wanted to put him out there to say, go out there, get us a couple strikeouts. We need you right for October because remember, and we're going to talk about the rotation rankings in a little bit, the Padres, a big thing about their pitching is their bullpen, right? So if they don't have Michael King at the peak of his powers, if Nick Pivetta doesn't give us the quality start that I think he could still give, you look at this team and say, all right, we're going to need all the bullpen we can get. Right? But David Morgan's there. Wandy can be pretty decent. And Jeremiah Estrada is a guy that typically they should be able to count on to face some of those really top tier batters, right? Use Wandy Peralta when it's the bottom of the lineup and you're trying to conserve a lead, get some ground balls, all that sort of stuff. David Morgan, he's another guy who could get strikeouts too, but he's younger, a little bit unproven. And then you have Morejon, obviously, Suarez and Miller, who have been fantastic. But I think he's trying to get his confidence back. Try and get something out of this guy. Make him look a little bit better, but he keeps giving up the long ball. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to trust what I see. And what I see is still a guy who's a gamer. What I see is still a guy who has some of the best stuff in the sport. Overall, a guy that the pitching staff has done a great job with. I'm still going to say, let's use this guy. However, I do think we have to start considering, like, maybe he's not a high leverage guy. Maybe we only have 3 high leverage guys right now in Miller, Suarez, and Morejon. And you kind of have to just use Estrada if you like the matchup or whatnot. Maybe Schilt like the matchup. Maybe there's a stat we're not seeing. But bottom line is the talent is still there. I guess they're just kind of wondering, okay, wait, all the peripherals tell us you're better than this, right? A little bit similar to Dylan Cease. So when is it going to look better? It should happen at some point, but I would be wary because remember that expected stats, we talk about this on the show sometimes, that might be something that kicks in for the next year, right? Sometimes it's year to year, things get better, right? Like it's just sort of what happens sometimes because it's a weird sport. What can I say? So, did Schilt make a mistake? I'm not going to go down that route because bottom line is I trust the people that I know that are close to the team, and I trust the fact that they've won a lot of games with Mike Schilt in consecutive years, and they hadn't done that with any other manager. So, whatever. We'll have to see, though, because if he has a bad moment in the postseason, I ain't going to be able to defend him, let me tell you. So we'll have to see how that all shakes out. But, guys, another set of news, unfortunately bad news. Ramon Laureano is expected to miss at least the NL Wild Card Series. Reading from Dennis Lin of The Athletic. Less than a week before their postseason opener, the San Diego Padres returned starting shortstop Xander Bogaerts from a foot fracture. Then, in Wednesday's second inning at Petco Park, they lost one of their most productive hitters to another significant injury. It fractured the index finger in his right hand, fouling off a pitch. Super crazy unlucky, right? That's Padresing right there. Manager Mike Silt said after a 3-1 loss to the Milwaukee Brewers, the outfielder will miss at least the first round of the playoffs, and if the Padres advance, possibly likely more time beyond that. In quotes, right when we were about to get the band together, this happens, Schilt said. Ramon's been fantastic for us. Yeah, it hurts, but we've got to figure out a way to move forward, which we will. By WRC+, Laureano has been the Padres' second best hitter since he was acquired from the Orioles on July 31st. In 50 games for San Diego, he has batted .269 with 9 home runs and an .812 OPS, and also has contributed defensive versatility. Wednesday, with star right fielder Fernando Tatis Jr. missing a third consecutive game because of flu-like symptoms, Laureano started at Tatis' position. Um, man, this is tough, right? It's expected to be some split between our boy Gavin Sheets, Derry Bonds, right? That's what's expected to happen. Or Ryan O'Hearn potentially. Thank God that Ryan O'Hearn could also be an outfielder. He does carry that versatility too. This isn't going to be the type of thing that I think breaks the team. I think what would have broken the team is like if you lost like a starting pitcher potentially, knock on woods and whatnot. Oh, I don't really have wood next to me right now, but that's kind of what we're looking at here. But hey, this is a lineup that's going to need all the help they can get. Can you still get some big value out of these other guys? Because it is the playoffs. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Luis Ariz hits like 450 in the postseason. It wouldn't surprise me if Jake Cronenworth does the same thing, right? Home runs and whatnot, maybe not something that we should expect coming from them, but overall, I could still see them just being hot for a series. That's what they need. Once you get to the second round, that's when it's like, all right, we'll have to see what happens here, especially with the rotation and whatnot. But for me, it's a brutal loss, and it compounds my overall feeling that this team just has not felt to me like one that's going to make it past the first round. That the Cubs, they're the new kid on the block in terms of just being back in the postseason. I'm not saying that they've never been good, but being back in the postseason in a big way, having that offense of theirs, having some decent starting pitching. Not as good as the Padres necessarily, but overall, what I see is this is going to be a problem, I think. Now, can it be remedied? Of course. Tatis could go supernova. He's done so basically his entire career in the playoffs. Could Manny Machado finally wake up the way he has just a tiny bit in September? Can Luis Ariz, Ryan O'Hearn, and Jackson Merrill, all players that have been getting really, really hot as of late, could they be really helpful and make up for the loss of Laureano? Absolutely. But for me, this is a vibes killer type of thing, right? Losing Jason Adam. We've talked about this before. The Padres very quietly, since they made the playoffs last year, have not had the best injury luck. Joe Musgrove going down, right? Having Jackson Merrill day to day, week to week for much of this season, multiple IL stints. Michael King going down. Jason Adam going down, right? Like Xander Bogaerts going down for a little bit. It's just been a little bit rough when it comes to some of the health for the Padres, and now Ramon Laureano, a guy that they just acquired at the deadline, who's been so good for this team, had some clutch hits too. But next man up. What can I say? Hopefully O'Hearn can play well in the outfield. That's where I think he's going to play. And because we know Gavin Sheets, not the best there. And Gavin Sheets, maybe he could play well at first base or DH. They'll just put Ariz there. I don't know. But we'll see once the playoff lineup comes out. But at least we've seen a lot of players that have been kicking up lately, is what I would say for anybody worrying about the absence of Laureano. And it's a wild card series, so it's possible that he could have got 0 for 3 in all 3 games, right? That's totally possible. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. And we'll also have to see how the rotation shakes out. Most importantly, that is going to be the question for the Padres going forward. And we got to talk about it. But first, we got to talk about our friends at Rougiet. That's right, folks. You might not have heard of them before. And that's fine. I get it. With Rougiet, though, let me tell you, when you're just kind of, moving about your life, you turn on the TV, you've probably heard with the commercials of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill and getting your confidence in the bedroom to feel safe and secure and all that sort of stuff and comfortable, it's time to meet Rougiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rougiet Go Long comes in. It's not just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual action formula, so you can go hard and get the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships directly right to your door, and if prescribed, your treatment will be there directly, securely, discreetly, fantastically with Rougiet, folks. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rougiet.com. That's RUGIET.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's Rougiet, RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know that we sent you. Make me happy, guys. Go do that. And just like that, everybody, we are thriving and vibing into the final segment of this here podcast. And we're talking a little bit about an athletic article that you guys could go check out for yourself, but I'll be reading exactly the Padres portion of it. But by Steven Steven Nesbitt and Chad Jennings, right? Like they did a little bit of a postseason power rankings kind of thing in terms of specifically the pitching, right? And I thought that it was actually a little bit surprising where they ranked the Padres. I'll read you guys the rankings at least for the beginning stuff until we get to the Padres. Number 1, the Los Angeles Dodgers, as they said, too many elite arms. Like they have just way too many guys with Yamamoto, Snell, Otani, Glasnow, Trinan's very good, Brock Stewart's very good, Alex Vesia's really good. But then they have one problem, which is their closer. You remember Tanner Scott? You remember when he was awesome for us? Shout out to Tanner Scott, confirmed double agent. He has a 4.63 ERA this year, and he's been one of the worst clutch closers in the sport, has just completely fallen apart. So shout out to Tanner Scott, I guess. So that's their one weakness. But after them, we have the Philadelphia Phillies, no surprise there. Then the Seattle Mariners at number 3. Then number 4, they have the Milwaukee Brewers, also not all that surprising. And then number 5, they actually put the Padres. And here's what they said. In terms of the good, bullpen, still a buzzsaw. And the bad, they think the runaway number 1 is Nick Pivetta, right? Here's what they say. The Padres still boast the best bullpen in the majors by season ERA 3.07, which is 37 points ahead of the second place Red Sox, and by the eye test. But losing setup reliever Jason Adams, who ruptured quad, was a big blow. Still, now that former A's reliever and closer Mason Miller is in the fold, that's a mighty group of leverage relievers. Padres pitchers lead the majors in batting average against, 226, batting average on balls in play, 269, and slugging percentage, just 367. The bullpen particular is suffocating. Heading into October, though, the Padres' focus is on sorting out the rotation. Pivetta turned down a qualifying offer from the Red Sox last winter, landed in San Diego on a 4-year deal, and has put together a career year 2.81 ERA and 3.49 FIP. Field independent pitching in 176 innings. But how reliable will King be, fresh off the injured list? Can Cease still throw strikes? Will Darvish get right in time for the wildcard round? Opposing lineups better get their runs in early against those guys, because once the Padres bullpen doors swings open, it's usually game over. And I thought it was interesting looking at the rest of the teams. The Astros ranked below them, right? The Red Sox, no surprise, because they don't have, as surefire of a rotation, and they've got some tough bullpen stuff, despite Aroldis Chapman having one of the more incredible years in a while. The Yankees, yes, they have Max Fried and Carlos Rodon, but you don't trust the rest of their bullpen nearly as much, and the rest of their rotation. I think that what we're seeing, and then the Cubs, most importantly, they ranked at number 9 with Cade Horton, Shoto Imanaga, and Matthew Boyd, and then Drew Pomeranz coming out of the bullpen. Remember him, by the way, guys? Remember him? Isn't it rough seeing that Drew Pomeranz finally figured out? We should have known that Drew Pomeranz was going to turn up with another team, and he was going to be fixed and healthy again, right? Such a shame. But I think that, number 5 versus number 9, none of these things can pan out. Because in my opinion, the only thing that I would look at in terms of the competitive teams is the truly bottom level teams, right? So I think the New York Mets, who they rank 13th, are a good example, right? The Toronto Blue Jays, where you don't really trust anyone in that rotation. The Arizona Diamondbacks, right? You don't really trust anyone there. But in terms of Padres Cubs, I don't think the gap is enormous. Is it enormous in bullpen? Sure. But I think that what we're looking at here in a wild card round is just, what if Nick Pivetta returns to what Nick Pivetta usually is, right? I'm talking about his career, not what he has been this year. And I know, Javi, look at what's in front of you right now. I get it. But at the same time, a series in Wrigley, Petco, much better of a pitcher's ballpark, and he's been a guy that's known to give up home runs throughout his career, right? Now, that did go down this year, and that's a big reason why he was good. But a big reason for that is just more focus, better curveball. His strikeout stuff was legit, I get it. But he did keep the ball in the ballpark. He had a 1.73 home run per 9 last year at 24, which is egregious. And it was one of the 5 to 10 highest in Major League Baseball. I don't have it in front of me. And before that, 1.45. He just gives up a lot of home runs, right? He just does. This year, though, only a 1.09. But I'm just saying, if he returns back to a guy who hasn't really had as much playoff experience, maybe, which in my opinion does absolutely matter when it comes to stuff, just because it won't shock me if you have a bad one, right? So I'm just saying, in the postseason, not necessarily the most experience in the world out of a guy who's going to be going number 1. The last time he pitched in the postseason, it was just 2021, where he did okay, though. He went 4 2/3 against the Rays, right? Not too bad. He gave up 3, nothing great, though. He went 4, gave up no earned runs against the Rays again, and then against Houston, he went 5 innings, only gave up 1 run. So at least you've seen some experience, but it was a while ago. That's all I'm saying, and things get different, especially when you're facing a really dynamic Cubs lineup. But I like that they pointed out the loss of Jason Adam. I think that Jason Adam, because then if we saw what was happening to Estrada right now, we'd be like, it's no problem. Just use Estrada with Wandy And when it's like the 5th inning potentially, and if you're up by a bunch of runs, you could use him there. And then you just trust Jason Adams to be better because he's been super flexible no matter what the role is. Closer, setup man, whatever, throughout his career. He's been ready for anything. That was a freak, fluky sort of injury that really hurt them. I think that what I will say that the Padres have, it will not surprise you if Yu Darvish or Michael King do well in the postseason. Dylan Cease has been bad. Not just this year, but also, my voice cracked there bad, by the way. Dylan Cease has been bad. And not just for the Padres this year. Historically, in the postseason, do you guys remember when everybody said, we can't keep this guy because he's not a playoff dude? It's not entirely without validity, right? Like, this guy has been bad in the postseason basically his whole career, the few times that he has made it, in 2020, 21, and 2024. Right? He's been a guy that hasn't gone farther than 3 1/3 innings. Dylan Cease in the playoffs has been what Dylan Cease has been this year in 2025, right? Consistently. Last year against the Dodgers, infamously, right? By the way, his total ERA in the postseason in his career is 12.91. He gave up 5 runs to the Dodgers when they really needed him. They did end up winning that game, but still. And then when they asked him on short rest, he only goes 1 2/3, gives up 3 earned runs. Right? And in 2021, a good season, I believe, for Dylan Cease. I'm going to check this up really quickly. In 2021, he was also bad in the playoffs, and the White Sox really did kind of need him that year. 2021. Yeah, 2021, he was really good. Like, that was kind of his breakout year where we started to see the potential and why he was a top prospect in the first place. Part of that trade with whoever. I forgot how they got him in the trade. It's like Eloy Jimenez and Dylan Cease for someone. It was a famous trade. You guys will let me know. But, yeah, so that's just kind of the way I see it. I think that the Padres, absolutely, their rotation, we could come out of this series against the Cubs and be like, classic playoff Darvish, Michael King back to normal, right? We could leave this series thinking that way. But it's also true that with these injuries, the Michael King being back on the injured list, when he came back originally and then going back on with a separate injury, does leave you a little bit worried. Has he had enough time to get back to what he is? And Yu Darvish, he's had enough time, but he hasn't shown it really, right? Like, he's been a guy that's only gone a few innings at a time. So I'm hoping he can be great if need be. Especially if they have to use the heck out of the bullpen, depending, like, if they have to use Darvish in a game 3. Look, he's a playoff guy. He's been there before. There are worse number 3s to trust. I'm just saying it's worth talking about, and it's worth at least bringing this up. And I'm just saying I will not be surprised if the Padres lose round 1, just because this rotation and the very inconsistent vibes of this team leave me worried. But it could also go our way, too. We have the experience. The Cubs are the new kids on the block, so maybe it's the other way around. Right? Maybe them being new is actually going to be bad for them. So we'll see. I've been coming up with all sort of different ways. We're going to get my official sort of series predictions next week. Maybe even talk about it a little bit more tomorrow with Big Jim on the Fun Friday episode. But for now, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, guys. The only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to send me all of your questions and comments about the team in the comment section below. Or, frankly, you could even message me about stuff that isn't baseball. I don't care. You could be like, hey, did you like the new Wolverine game? That's why I'm wearing the shirt today. You could ask me about that. I don't care. I just love hearing back from you guys, the listeners, the viewers. Dare I even say the fans? Maybe dare say the fans. But until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friday faithful homies, take care.